everyone. Welcome to the LL Medical English webinar with OET specialist Jack Waas. And the webinar is for healthcare professionals who want to work in the US and Canada. And if you're just coming in, you can share where you're coming in from. Just a couple of housekeeping things to mention. During the webinar, everyone will be kept on mute except the speakers. You can write in the chat, and from time to time, we may add links related to things that we're talking about. We will answer some live questions at the end, so please feel free to enter them in the Q&A box or in the chat. We are recording the webinar, and everyone will receive an email after with a link to the replay in case you have to leave early. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. First, I want to tell you a little bit about who I am, who LL Medical English is, and why we're doing this webinar. I'm Lisa. I'm the owner of LL Medical English. I trained as a dietitian in Canada, but I moved to Madrid in 2013 and been here ever since. And I thought I would mention that I've learned Spanish as an adult, so learning a second language. I have started my business, LL Medical English, in 2015, so 11 years now teaching medical English. I am an OET Premium Preparation Partner, so that means I have the highest training as a teacher from OET. And I have other teachers that work with me. And one of the things that makes us a little bit unique is all of us have a healthcare background and also experience teaching English, training and experience teaching English. And today's webinar is part of a series we are creating to help more healthcare professionals find out about opportunities to work around the world and more about the OET test and how to prepare. And today's focus is on opportunities in the US and Canada. And to help with that, we have a special guest today, actually two. But the main one that's going to be talking the most, I think, is Jack Waas, who is OET's Business Development Manager for the Americas. He promotes OET in the Americas region and supports candidates in finding quality test preparation. His background before starting work with the OET is in adult education and university admissions and recruitment. And so we're really happy to have Jack and Elizabeth, who he will introduce soon, with us today.
Great, so, thank you, Lisa, for the opportunity, for being able to present to this group and talk a little bit more about OET. As Lisa said, I'm the Business Development Manager for OET, focusing on the Americas region. So I partner with different organizations that are looking to offer OET preparation, deliver a lot of similar webinars to candidates that are starting their preparation journey with OET, and help connect them with quality preparation resources as well. I'm going to be joined by my colleague Elizabeth, so I'll let her do a brief introduction as well.
Thanks, Jack. Hello, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Denton, Senior Director of Partnerships for OET in the Americas, and I work with our recognizing organizations and partners throughout primarily the US and Canada. So I'll be talking about where we are accepted in those two countries. I did see that someone's interested in Ireland as well, so I'll certainly point you to where on the website you can find that information. We have many recognizing organizations in Ireland too, where you can use your results. And I just want to mention that prior to joining OET 4 years ago, I did have a lengthy career with ECFMG in the United States, administering the Step 2 clinical skills exam, which was required for international medical graduates as well as US medical graduates prior to and leading up to the pandemic. It has been replaced in part by the ECFMG pathways with OET medicine.
Great, thank you, Elizabeth. So great, I'm going to go ahead and get started then. So I'm going to talk about a couple things today. Let me go ahead and share the agenda here. Let's see. Great, so here's the agenda for today's session. Talk about what OET is, how it's different from other English language tests, the different parts of the test, and then we're going to talk a little bit about scoring and results and some of the preparation resources we have available on our website. So to get us started, just what is OET? A very high level kind of overview of what OET is. So OET is an English language test uniquely tailored for healthcare, unlike general or more academic English tests that are available on the market. It mirrors the language that healthcare workers use every day in healthcare settings. It also provides a valid and fair assessment of all 4 of the language skills. So speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And again, we'll get into what's in those different subtests a a little bit further along in the presentation. And it's also accepted by regulators and healthcare organizations worldwide. So in terms of the different professions, there are 12 different versions of the exam for different healthcare professions. So some examples that you can see here include medicine, nursing, optometry, and physical therapy. Each version is profession specific and assesses the language skills necessary to provide quality care. So that's kind of why we had this poll at the beginning, asking kind of where people are coming from and what profession interested in. We'll talk a little bit more about where OET is accepted and how the results can be used for these different professions. And so that varies greatly by country and by profession. All right, so the OET test is accepted worldwide by the major health regulators and immigration agencies as listed above. So you can kind of see some examples. As Elizabeth mentioned, OET is accepted in the US by ECFMG for IMGs, for foreign trained physicians that are looking to practice in the United States. It's also accepted by CGFNS in the United States for nurses that are looking to practice in the US. And you can kind of see some of those other acceptance listed here on the slide. So accepted for nursing, for medicine, for immigration, and also by some of the major allied healthcare regulators in some of these countries. And again, we'll get a little bit more into detail and that acceptance moving forward. So this slide is specific for nursing in the United States. So this map shows several different routes to apply for state license by examination and immigration if a candidate only has OET results to demonstrate English proficiency. So again, for those of you that are not nurses looking to practice in the United States, this slide might not be as relevant, but I did want to make sure to share that information in case there is anyone on the call who is interested in that route. So there's different routes. The first route here are those states listed in blue. And those are states that either accept OET results when sent directly to them or part as the CGFNS or one of the other credentialing reports. So those are those states listed in blue. Moving on to the states with diagonal blue stripes. So in some states, candidates are typically exempt from demonstrating English proficiency if they took their nursing education in English. However, they will need to use their OET results to make an application for the healthcare worker certificate. So you can still use OET for that part of the process in those states with the diagonal blue stripes. In addition, a few states and all of the US territories do not require English proficiency for the initial license application, but as with the previous example, you will still need to use your OET results when you apply for the healthcare worker certificate. So those states and territories are shown in green. So you can still use your OET results when applying for the required healthcare worker certificate. So as you can see, OET results are widely accepted in more than 45 US states and territories, meaning that OET will allow you a variety of options when considering where in the US you want to work. So I'm going to pass it over to Elizabeth now to talk a little bit more about where OET is accepted specifically in the US and Canada.
Thank you, Jack. So I just want to say before I start talking about specific recognizing organizations that, of course, we are not speaking for any of these organizations. So we would send you, there's two resources. One is you should check the Who Recognizes OET page on our website, where we have the full list of all of our recognizing organizations, including in Ireland. So you can just filter it by country. There's a lot of different ways you can search. So, of course, these are just ones that are listed on there. But I just want to make sure you know that we don't speak for ECFMG. We would want you to go directly to their website to learn about the requirements for the ECFMG certificate and for the pathways. But just to make you aware, we'll start with them, that OET Medicine is the only English proficiency test accepted for the ECFMG certification process for international medical graduates who want to come to the US. As I'm sure those of you who are physicians know, you would need that certificate in order to, usually you would need that in order to apply for the match. But again, go to their website for the full requirements for that process. Some of you may be aware that there are U.S. states and territories that are introducing alternative licensure pathways. Some of these may not require residency. Again, we're not experts on that, so you would want to go check their websites, but just to make you kind of aware of the growing use of OET medicine test results. I don't think anybody said they were from Mexico on this call. However, there is, through the California State Board of Medicine, there is a program called the Licensed Physicians from Mexico, where physicians in certain specialties can come to work in California because, as you may know, California has a high need for Spanish speakers. And so they can use their results now. That was written into legislation, and it's now part of the process for licensure in California if you qualify through that route. Idaho is a state that has an IMG provisional license where they've verified that you can use your OET results. And then many others are introducing an alternative licensure pathway as part of ECFMG certification. So again, check those requirements, because we are not experts on this, but our understanding is that might include Arkansas, Florida, Nevada, Texas, Tennessee, and Wisconsin. So this is a growing area. And then, of course, for those of you who might be wishing to seek additional training, perhaps prior to seeking a residency program in the U.S., the Cleveland Clinic accepts OET results for their clinical elective program. Many universities, I've just put a few here, take our results for their visiting medical student programs. So just a few to highlight are the University of Pittsburgh, Stanford University in California, and Yale University in Connecticut. Let me advance to the next slide. We also have just been approved for, I don't know if there's any dentists on the call, but I'll just briefly mention that the Minnesota Board of Dentistry is one of the only ones in the US that will individually evaluate a foreign educated dentist credential. So they've just started using OET results for their general limited general license pathway. So again, go to their website if you or someone you know is interested in that, but we want to make you aware that that's exciting that we now have a recognition for dentistry in the United States. Okay, in Canada, we are widely accepted for medicine as well. I know there's a couple of you on the call who said you're interested in Canada. So all of the provincial colleges of physicians and surgeons, which is where you have to be registered in order to practice, all of those provinces that have an English requirement, so that's Alberta, British Columbia, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Newfoundland and Labrador, Nova Scotia, Ontario, Prince Edward Island, and Saskatchewan, all accept OET results. In our understanding, in fact, in Nova Scotia, is that we will become the preferred test by next year. So all of those, they're very supportive of the OET medicine test because it is the only one that is medicine specific that you can use for registration in Canada. If you are seeking a residency program in Canada, all of the medical residency programs at the English-speaking universities throughout Canada take OET medicine results. Some physicians who have experience practicing in their own countries may qualify for the practice ready assessment pathway in Canada. If you're interested in that, we would urge you to go to the Medical Council of Canada's website, and they call them the PRAs. There's a web page that talks about this and how you qualify. Again, your OET medicine results can be used either directly for British Columbia, New Brunswick, and Ontario, or indirectly through the colleges of physicians and surgeons for those pathways. Nova Scotia has kind of an exciting new extension of that pathway called PACE, which is the Physician Assessment Center of Excellence. If you're interested, just Google the Nova Scotia PACE program, but we are accepted for applications for that as well if you qualify. And then we just want to point out that we are the only language test that is mentioned on the Medical Council of Canada's website as an excellent preparation resource for those international medical graduates and internationally trained physicians who are seeking the licentiate from the Medical Council of Canada. And as with the US, there are many fellowships and other programs that accept our results. Additional professions in Canada, we have achieved national recognition for nursing and pharmacy. So we're just waiting for one more of the nursing regulators. There are 19 different nursing regulators throughout Canada, depending on the province, who have an English language requirement. We have almost all of them. Pharmacy, we have every province with an English language requirement. Ontario just added us in January. So if you're a pharmacist, you can use your results for registration. And then, as you can see on here, we have a number of the other allied healthcare professions. So people who might want to start, some professionals may wish to start as a healthcare aide or personal support worker. There are 3 designated regulators in Canada, that's in Alberta, BC, and Ontario, that have a have a process for registration in those professions. The College of Dental Surgeons of Alberta, a couple of the dietitians. Lisa, you mentioned that you're trained as a dietitian, so happy to say that that's Ontario and Nova Scotia currently, and then a couple of speech language pathology regulators. So the OET test is widely accepted. And again, I would say go to the Who Recognizes OET page on our website if you want to have more information and required scores and those sorts of things. So I'm going to hand it back over to Jack. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Elizabeth. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about what makes OET unique. Obviously, one of those main features is the recognitions that we just talked about, but there's a couple other features of the test that make it, stand out in comparison to other English language tests on the market. So as I mentioned, OET is the only English language test designed specifically for healthcare professionals. It is backed by research and developed in consultation with subject matter experts, meaning that the content is relevant and specific to a healthcare context, and is reviewed for relevance by licensed healthcare professionals in each country where the test operates. So for example, the medicine version of OET is reviewed by physicians who also write items for the test on an ongoing basis. The test materials replicate the language skills required to deliver patient safety and quality care, and candidates learn the type of work they'll need, the type of language they'll need at work. All this to say that prepping for and taking OET will help candidates develop skills they will need on the job. Here are two examples that illustrate how OET is different from other general English language tests on the market. So for writing, a more traditional general academic English tests, candidates might be asked to write an essay on a general topic, so something like global warming. Whereas with OET, they have to write a healthcare letter, usually a referral letter, and it's something that's based on case notes. So again, candidates are being assessed on their writing abilities in English, but in a more applicable and familiar scenario. The same thing for writing. In a general English test, for speaking. In a general English test, candidates might have to participate in a structured interview on a general topic. Whereas with OET, candidates are asked to take the role of a healthcare professional in a role play with a patient, where they'll be having the type of conversation they might have on a daily basis with patients. So the next two slides are also kind of focusing on nurses looking to practice in the United States. So just talking about some of the similarities between OET and NCLEX. So another reason that many candidates choose OET is that prepping for and taking OET also helps nurses that are preparing for NCLEX. While OET and NCLEX are two different tests, right? NCLEX being the national licensure examination for nurses that tests their clinical knowledge, whereas OET tests candidates' English language proficiency in a healthcare context. They both require knowledge of nursing-specific vocabulary and an understanding of providing quality care. While OET tests speaking, listening, writing, and reading, NCLEX is made up of primarily multiple choice questions. That being said, OET helps prepare nurses to understand case notes. It helps increase their medical terminology and discuss patients' healthcare needs, all of which are helpful skills when preparing for the NCLEX. So now let's take a closer look at the 4 different subtests and what is made, what each of them are comprised of. So the first one is speaking, which takes around 20 minutes, and it's made up of 2 role plays designed to give candidates the opportunity to demonstrate a range of English and the ability to speak to patients or their family members on a variety of common healthcare issues. So candidates will take the role of a healthcare professional, whether it be a physician, if it's the OET medicine, or nurse, if they're taking the nursing version of the test. And there's also an interlocutor on the call, and the interlocutor will play the role of the patient in the role play. The interlocutor is only there to help facilitate the role play. They have no part in the assessment. And both the candidate and interlocutor are given a role card with information about the purpose of the conversation and the talking points or things or the things that they need to cover in the conversation. Candidates are given 3 minutes to prepare for each role play, and then each role play lasts around 5 minutes. Moving on to listening. Listening takes around 40 minutes and is made up of 3 parts. Part A are 2 separate consultations between a healthcare professional and a patient. And this is something that healthcare professionals are typically very comfortable with. There's no need to change any information that you hear in this audio. Instead, you should write exactly what's heard to complete the gaps in the case notes. There's 12 questions for each of these 2 audios. Part B are 6 short dialogues or monologues in workplace settings. These are the types of conversations healthcare professionals might have with colleagues, such as the handover of a patient, a team briefing, or feedback to a healthcare professional from a mentor. And last, of professional development content that healthcare professionals might listen to. So presenters might describe the work that they do in their healthcare field, for example, or developments in the treatment of a condition. Moving on to reading. Reading also has 3 parts and takes 60 minutes. Part A is an expeditious reading task, which is completed in 15 minutes and is designed to replicate the workplace where healthcare professionals don't always have the luxury of time to consider information or check the meaning of words. So candidates should use their skimming and scanning skills to quickly find information from one of 4 texts and copy this as their answer. Part B are 6 short workplace extracts. So these are short texts typical of those sent out as an email or a memo in a workplace setting or found in a staff room notice board. So something like policy updates or machine operating instructions. And Part C are 2 longer passages. So like listening, these are typical of professional development content of general interest to all healthcare professionals. The last subtest here is writing. So in the writing subtest, candidates have to write a profession letter based on a set of clinical case notes. Typically, it comes in the form of a referral letter or discharge summary. Candidates are given time to read the patient's case history, which is something typically very familiar to them. And at the end of the case notes is the writing task, containing details of who you need to write the letter to and why. You can see here on the slide that you're given 5 minutes of reading time to read the case notes and the tasks and what you need to write about, and then 40 minutes to actually write the letter. Everything that needs to be included in the letter can be found in the case notes. Candidates need to decide which information the reader needs to continue care and how to organize the letter to be as clear as possible for the reader. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about scoring and results. So the first thing to note here is that candidates receive separate letter grades for each test in the form of a letter grade and a numerical score. So some tests you receive an overall score. For OET, you're getting a different score for each subtest: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Most recognizing boards and councils require scores of at least 350 in each of the 4 subtests. But again, that varies by the profession and by the country. In the United States for nursing, it sometimes even varies by the state. So it does get a little tricky in terms of figuring out what score is required. So this table kind of shows you an example of what the scores look like. So if you see on the left here, for example, candidates receive a letter grade and a score. So a letter grade of B corresponds to a score of 350 to 440. A letter score of C plus corresponds to a grade of between 300 and 340. And then you can see on the right here how these scores correspond to the CEFR band, right? A lot of English language learners might be familiar with this way of determining what their level of proficiency is. So A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. Well, that's how this corresponds to the OET grade and score as well. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is some of the free preparation resources available on our website that you can use when starting your preparation journey with OET. So the first thing to note here is that there typically are 2 parts of test preparation. For candidates below a B2 level of English, we typically recommend focusing on a more general language proficiency. So at this stage, you're focusing on grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, fluency, accuracy. Once candidates reach that B2 level, then they can shift their focus to the second stage of preparation, which focuses more on test familiarity. And at this stage, you're working on learning the format of the test, the tasks that are covered, the timing of each part of the test, what skills and strategies you need to learn, as well as focusing on time management and crisis awareness. So that's typically done for candidates that already have that B2 level of English. At that stage, they're focusing on the second part of preparation. The first stop for candidates looking for preparation is the Ready section of the OET website. So that's oet.com/ready. On the Ready page, there's a wide variety of materials across multiple study formats that cover the 4 sections of OET, as well as hours worth of free resources. These are some of the materials that can be found on the website: sample test, free intro to OET course, OET study guide, and there's a combination of free and paid resources. So one of our most popular resources, as I just mentioned, is the study guide. It's a free resource that can be downloaded or used online. And it's also interactive because it links you directly to some of our key resources, to extra skill building materials, to videos, and so on. So this is an example of what the first few pages of the study guide look like. There are resources and tips that cover the 4 sections of the test, as well as practice materials and sample tests. Another resource available on our website are the free intro to OET courses. So these are 3 options here for nursing, but of course we do have options for the other professions as well. You can find these on the OET.com store, and they're a great way to learn more about the test and kind of learn some of the skills and strategies. So these are free courses, as I mentioned. Each one lasts around 10 hours. They can be done completely online, and they're definitely a good recommendation for those looking for free preparation materials. These courses give you a comprehensive overview of the OET test and include practice questions, tips, downloadable checklists, and a study planner, and lots more. And they can be taken on your laptop, phone, or tablet. We also have online courses covering each of the individual skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So these courses do have a cost. They're 30 Australian dollars. I believe on the US version of the website, they're around 20, maybe $25 each. They're 100% online and self-directed, and they focus on skills and strategies you need. But again, each course focuses on a specific subtest. So if you're starting your preparation, maybe you find that you're struggling with reading or with listening, you can purchase one of these low-cost courses and really focus on the skills and strategies for that specific skill. Another popular resource on our website are the free sample tests. So there are 5 complete tests worth of questions with both computer and paper versions available. And there's also answer tests included, as well as audio and transcripts for the listening test. So they can be used in a variety of different ways. So for test familiarity, for test practice, for language study, depending on what stage you are at of your preparation journey, these sample tests can be really helpful in navigating and kind of learning more about the test, no matter where you are in your preparation journey. Last resource I want to talk about here is our YouTube channel, which has a wide variety of free preparation videos that you can watch whenever it suits you. So here on the right, you can see the OET Reading Part A playlist. We also have playlists for all the different parts of the test, depending on what you want to focus on. And then lastly, our social media channels. So feel free to follow us on social media: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. There's daily content for the OET social media channels created by our education team. They provide tips and advice to candidates preparing for OET. So it's also a great place to learn about the latest news from OET. That brings me to the end of my part of the presentation. So I'm going to turn it back to Lisa to continue with the next part of the slides.
Thank you so much, Jack and Elizabeth, for all that great information. Probably everyone's happy there's going to be a replay because they're going to want to go back and look at the slides again and find the information specific for them. And before we get into the questions, that's the next part that's coming. I wanted to just talk a little bit about how myself and my team support candidates on their OET journey as a premium preparation provider with OET. So I'm going to talk about 4 main ones. The first one is what we call the OET Quick Start. And this is an initial assessment that we do with each new candidate that works with us. So we can look at their listening, their reading, and their writing levels before we get started into doing their classes. And that includes a follow-up session with myself to look at your results, to talk about, where you are at your different levels, to look at what your goals are, when you want to have the exam by, etc. And that allows us to then talk about what we think is the best way for you to reach your goal within the time that you want. And usually from that step, they go next to the personalized one-on-one classes. And these are all customized based on what you need, your goals, your level. For example, if you just want to work on your writing, maybe you're doing great in all the other subtests, then we just work on your writing, or maybe you need help in all 4. And each step along the way, you're going to know how close you are to being ready. And because we talk about that the whole time. And so there's no surprises. And we talk about, things and resources and things you can use to increase your level and get feedback and homework with every class. The third one is our online learning hub and community designed for self-study, but it's also a great complement if you're doing one-on-one classes. So you can go in and get grammar resources, medical English resources like taking a patient history, patient-friendly vocabulary, which is really great for listening part A. And also, there's materials and things in there to help you with your OET preparation. And we add new resources and tutorials each month. So if you're excited about that. And then the last one that you can interact with us is our medical English newsletter that you get weekly tips about all things medical English, like things that can help you if you're below B2 or above B2 as you're preparing for the exam. And also we give you tips for the OET preparation as well. So those are a few things I wanted to just highlight there. And the last thing I wanted to share before questions is how you can contact us. So on this screen, you have basically everything: social media, how to join our newsletter, how to join look at the learning lab, etc. is all on the screen. So let's go into the questions. We had a couple people send questions in advance, so we're going to look at those first. And then if there's any additional questions, we can also look at those. So the first one's for you, Jack or Elizabeth, I believe.
So I'm not sure I understand quite what the intent of the question is in terms of employment opportunities, or if we would be experts on speaking about that. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, some of the, we talked about some of the ways that OET can be used in terms of like clinical research and observerships and things like that. So I think maybe that is kind of what's being referred to here, rather than just using it to look for residency directly. But I think that would kind of be what I would say for this one.
Yeah. Check our website. There's many ways to use your OET results for international medical graduates, both in the US and Canada, for training as well as licensure.
I wanted to just mention, I have one example of one of my students who did the OET and passed in Nova Scotia, and she was a pediatrician from Ukraine, and she moved to Nova Scotia. She's a resident in Nova Scotia. And she couldn't practice even with the OET as a pediatrician, but she did find a really great job on a surgical team as a physician assistant, and the OET helped her with that. And she's very happy with that. It's a good
Sorry, Lisa.
example, right?
Yeah, that's a
and
great point. Alberta Health Services has a couple of those type of positions as well that you can use in the province of Alberta and Canada, and they take OET results.
and sometimes people use these positions while they're maybe going to apply for another residency, like a medical residency or things like that. So
Yeah.
that.
Great point. Yes.
Anything else on this question?
I think so, no.
Okay.
Mhm.
The next question is, how much time does it take to prepare for the test, depending on your English level? I think I hear this question every day. Usually, of course, the answer is it depends. That's not a surprise. I would say that it depends on if your level is below B2 or above B2 makes a big difference. And we've had students prepare with us from 1 month, but they were very high level and just needed a little bit of help, to over a year. So it can vary. I would say if students come to us with a B2 or a good B2 level, the average is about 3 months. And before they are at a B2, we still work with people, but then we focus more on what Jack was talking about, like grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation. But one of the things that is unique with us is because we do everything just in medical English, is everything we do, even the grammar and the situations and everything we talk about, are in healthcare contexts. So you're preparing, and we even use some examples from the OET test in those classes as well. But once you're above the B2 and you're ready to now prepare for the exam, it would be more practice tests and exam test, like test taking strategy, etc. So that's from my experience. Hopefully that helps people get an idea about that. Okay, next one. An osteopath.
Working in Canada.
I am not an expert on how osteopaths can work in Canada. And then in terms of the level of English, well, you can see what the requirements are for registration for medicine in Canada on our website. I know that they all require, I believe, a B level, so it's a fairly high level, right, Jack, of English.
Yeah, I was going to say that regardless of what the route is to work as an osteopath in Canada, most likely you would need at least that high intermediate level of English. So it's saying for someone that maybe has a very basic level of English, you would still need to work regardless of what profession and where you're looking to work. Typically, they're looking for that B2 or C1 level of English. So you would need at least a higher intermediate level to be able to work professionally in any of these English-speaking countries that OET is accepted in.
I just want to mention too, the Medical Council of Canada's website. They have, I know, some resources with an overview of kind of how the process works for IMGs and ITPs in Canada. So you might want to check there as well for some more information. And
they just released a really good document that summarizes it in all the provinces. It's very comprehensive. Great. That's all the questions that we had in advance. Just wondering if there were some other questions that came into the chat today.
I did think I saw a few of them. Let's see, I'm trying to find the chat now. Here we go. So I see a question asking about, is it only for nurses or is it for doctors too? So yes, there are 12 different versions of OET, including OET medicine for doctors and OET nursing for nurses. So OET can be taken for doctors as well as nurses.
And there's a question about cost of courses. Well, it depends on what you're looking at. There's a number of courses on the OET website. Some are free, some are very reasonably priced. And the cost for things that you do with us, we usually do it in a consultation with people, and we base what we talk about what they're interested in, and then we can talk about prices, because it depends on the situation, on what you need.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the same thing for our resources on the website. We have a variety of free resources. I mean, we do have some more low cost resources. And then if you're looking kind of for something a little bit more comprehensive, we do have some more higher cost options as well. But there's plenty of free resources that I mentioned so far. So if you're struggling financially or have a tighter budget for preparation, you can definitely get started with those.
Mhm. There's one question about a code for the SLC campus course on the OET website, I think, but that's not something we would have.
No, I
I'm
think
not
she
sure.
corrected herself later on. She said,
Oh,
I
did she? Okay.
apologize that she clicked on
Oh,
the
got it.
Oh, okay,
on the
okay,
wrong website.
Got it. Okay.
okay, good. Oh, they're asking about the Learning Lab. Okay. The website they were talking about was the Learning Lab, which it's the link join at llmedicalenglish.com. And all the information, prices included, are on that link. So everything should be there. Ask about financial support available to attend courses and get the exams.
So for the courses themselves, as I mentioned, there are a lot of free resources. So I would focus on those. We don't, unfortunately, offer any discounts on the products that we offer on our website, the paid ones. But of course, you can focus on those free ones. And for the test itself, every once in a while, we do have promotions in different parts of the world where you might be able to get a discount on the OET test itself. That being said, I don't have like a stated schedule of when that happens. So you really have to check in specific countries. Sometimes there's like location-based discounts. But yeah, that's kind of all I could say about that in terms of discounts.
Okay, I don't see any other questions in the chat.
Okay.
No. I don't know if you have anything else that you want to add, Jack or Elizabeth.
No, not for the time being. I mean, I would definitely say check out our website. There's a lot of information there. One link that I can paste right now is the Who Recognizes OET page. So for those of you that are looking to kind of maybe determine how you want to use your results or where you want to work, things like that, I can paste that link. Who recognizes OET, and then you can kind of filter it by country and kind of see where OET is accepted. So we mentioned this link a couple times already. So yeah, if you're looking at the US version of the page, you can see what states OET is accepted in for nursing. You can see that it's accepted by ECFMG for medicine, and kind of some of those other uses in the US besides just residency that you can use the test for. And the same thing for Canada and the other countries that it's accepted in. So definitely a great resource for those looking to see how they can use their results.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Before we sign off, I just want to say an extra thank you to Jack and Elizabeth for being here today, and very excited to be able to offer this type of a webinar to people interested in the OET and working in the US and Canada. Hopefully it's the first of a series that we are planning to share to, you know, for the UK, for Ireland, for Australia, other regions of the world that may have a few other different things that we can talk about. And everyone that is signed up for the call will receive the video on replay so they can watch it again. And we'll include the links for the different resources that we, like some of the main resources that we talked about. And stay tuned for the next webinar. Hopefully.
Lisa, before you go, there's
Yes.
someone who has a question. She's asking if the classes are personalized or in groups of how many people?
Okay. So it depends on what you're talking about. We have one-on-one classes that are personalized for each person. So that would be just one student and one teacher, and they're all online. And the Learning Lab is the other thing, is basically a portal with lots of resources, and we will have sometimes a group session with that, or a webinar, or like today, this could be the type of things that we do from time to time. We're talking about having like a speaking club where you can come in and talk with with some English speakers to practice and things like that. So that's a little bit different. And I think the courses on the OET website are all self-directed, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, the majority of them are self-directed. Yeah, so that one would be individualized. You do it at your own pace.
Yeah. Was there any more, Denise, that we should talk about?
No.
No. Okay. Perfect. So thanks again, everyone, and you will be hearing from us very soon with the replay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you to
you.
everyone. Thank you, Lisa, for the invitation. And yes, definitely, hopefully we can do more of these in the future.
Thank you.